we knew the exact tone that we wanted it to be. And Carl Reiner said to me, he said, you can establish.
We had a clear vision for the tone we wanted to set. Carl Reiner once told me, you can define a film's vibe in the first 2 minutes, laying out the ground rules and showing how far you're ready to push. That's why The Jerk opens with such wild absurdity. Comedy icon or not, Steve Martin harbors some deep-seated resentments. Beneath his wit and charm, he's carried quiet frustrations with certain co-stars who turned his time on set into a trial. For years, he kept these tensions under wraps, but now the truth is surfacing. Let's unpack the 6 actors Steve Martin has openly admitted he couldn't stand working with. Chevy Chase. When Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short teamed up for 1980's IXS Three Amigos, audiences saw 3 comedy titans delivering a riotous Western spoof. On screen, their rapport seemed seamless, 3 hapless silent film stars stumbling into a real-life showdown. But off-camera, the experience was far from harmonious. For Martin, the project tested his patience, particularly with Chevy Chase. Martin approached Three Amigos with his signature discipline, arriving prepared, lines memorized, and ready to honor the script he'd co-written with Randy Newman and Lorne Michaels. To him, comedy was about precision, rhythm, timing, and trust in the crafted material. Chevy Chase, however, operated on his own terms. Already a star from Saturday Night Live, Caddyshack, and Fletch, Chase was known as both brilliant and challenging. He bristled at constraints, often rewriting scenes on the fly, tossing in unscripted quips, and derailing takes to chase laughs for himself. Some. This was improvisational genius, but to Martin, who valued structure, it was chaos. He didn't lash out or confront Chase head-on. Martin was too composed for that. Instead, his frustration emerged through biting wit. During one tense moment, he quipped, "If ego were currency, Chevy could buy Manhattan." The line, delivered with a grin, carried a sharp truth that didn't go unnoticed. To Martin, Chase's need to dominate scenes felt less like teamwork and more like a spotlight grab, turning an ensemble comedy into a battle for control. There were no explosive arguments or dramatic exits, but the set was thick with tension. Martin Short, the third amigo, often played mediator, balancing Martin's professionalism with Chase's unpredictability. By the end of filming, Martin had decided he wouldn't repeat the ordeal. Hollywood, eager to capitalize on their chemistry, could have paired them again, but Martin quietly declined future collaborations. While he remained civil in public, the lack of further projects spoke volumes. Three Amigos remains a beloved classic, but it's also a study in clashing styles. Martin's meticulous, artful comedy collided with Chase's erratic, ego-fueled improvisation. The final product delighted audiences, but the process left lasting marks. Martin stood for discipline, treating comedy as a crafted art where every beat mattered. Chase chased instinct, seeking laughs at any cost, even if it meant overshadowing his co-stars. For a film about camaraderie, the irony was stark. Behind the scenes, Martin and Chase were far from amigos. Bette Midler Hollywood's history is littered with tales of mismatched personalities. But one surprising clash came between Steve Martin, the master of calculated absurdity, and Bette Midler, the queen of bold theatrics and unapologetic flair. Both were giants in their fields, each with a knack for captivating audiences. Yet, when they joined forces for a high-profile charity gala, what should have been a night of synergy unraveled into a lesson in ego, timing, and conflicting ideas of collaboration. Martin approached the co-hosting gig with his usual precision, crafting a sharp, witty monologue that blended satire with sophistication, the kind of humor audiences expected from his stand-up and TV work. To him, sticking to the script wasn't rigidity. It was about creating a rhythm that respected the audience. Bette Midler, the divine Miss M, thrived on spontaneity, turning events into spectacles with her commanding presence. For her, a gala was a stage to seize, not a script to follow. As Martin began his monologue, setting the evening's tone, Midler veered off script without warning. She launched into a booming musical number, her voice overpowering Martin's words and hijacking the stage. To the audience, it might have seemed like a dynamic exchange, but to Martin, it was a derailment. His carefully constructed rhythm was shattered, his role reduced to a bystander in Midler's show. Ever the professional, Martin didn't snap or fight for the spotlight. He smiled through the disruption and let Midler take the lead. But the tension was undeniable. By mid-event, he'd had enough. Without fanfare, he quietly left early. A subtle but firm statement from a man who valued preparation and partnership. Later, Martin made his feelings clear in a way only he could, with a donation to the charity accompanied by a note that read, "Tell Bet it's from her biggest admirer." Silence. The quip was vintage Martin, witty, pointed, and laced with just enough sting. For him, the clash wasn't about envy. It was about respect. He'd expected a balanced partnership, blending his refined humor with Midler's vibrant energy. Instead, he felt sidelined by a performer who consumed the stage rather than shared it. The fallout wasn't a public feud. Martin was too restrained for that. But the story became Hollywood lore, a testament to how even legends can clash. His note became the anecdote that defined the night, capturing his frustration with dry humor. The incident underscored their stark differences, Martin's disciplined craftsmanship versus Midler's chaotic showmanship. Both were brilliant, but together they were oil and water. Robin Williams, when two comedy legends share a stage, expectations run high for brilliance. Often, that's what happens. But sometimes, the sparks reveal not harmony, but a clash of irreconcilable styles. Such was the case with Steve Martin and Robin Williams, two giants whose mutual admiration couldn't bridge their vastly different approaches. Martin built his career on precision, absurd yet controlled humor, where every gesture, pause, and punchline was meticulously crafted. His performances were a masterclass in structure, blending wit with elegance. Robin Williams, by contrast, was a force of nature. His mind raced at breakneck speed, his comedy a whirlwind of improvisation, impressions, and rapid-fire gags. He didn't just perform, he unleashed. Audiences adored his unpredictability, but for a performer like Martin, who thrived on control, it was like trying to harness a tempest. Their clash came during a shared skit meant to showcase their contrasting talents. On paper, it was a perfect pairing, Martin's measured wit complementing Williams' frenetic energy. But in reality, it was chaos. During a pivotal moment, Williams veered off script, launching into a loud, unscripted riff that drew roars of laughter but threw Martin's rhythm into disarray. For Williams, it was a spontaneous spark. For Martin, it was a collapse of the structure he'd labored to build. Later, Martin summed up the experience with a quip. "Performing with Robin is like reciting poetry during a hurricane." The line captured his awe, respect, and frustration, admiration for Williams' genius, but exasperation at his uncontainable energy. For Williams, the hurricane was freedom. For Martin, it was turmoil. There was no bitterness. Martin deeply respected Williams' singular talent, his ability to electrify a room with off-the-cuff brilliance. Williams, in turn, admired Martin's artistry. But respect didn't mean compatibility. After the skit, they quietly agreed not to collaborate again. Their paths diverged, reflecting deeper truths about comedy itself. Martin's ordered, rehearsed craft versus Williams' untamed flood of imagination. Martin never disparaged Williams publicly. His roller coaster remark was a tribute, not a jab. Williams, aware his style could overwhelm, respected Martin from afar. Their clash wasn't personal. It was a collision of order and chaos, two brilliant approaches that couldn't coexist on the same stage. Goldie Hawn on screen. Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn were a comedic dream team in 1992's House Sitter, delighting audiences with their mix of romantic farce and sharp banter. Their chemistry seemed effortless, two veterans trading quips with perfect timing. But behind the scenes, the experience was less harmonious, marked by subtle frustrations that dimmed Martin's desire to work with Hahn again. Martin approached comedy with rigor, his stand-up roots and years of honed routines giving him a deep respect for timing and preparation. A scene wasn't just lines, it was a delicate architecture of rhythm. Hahn, however, thrived on instinct. Her bubbly charm and improvisational flair made her magnetic, but to Martin, her spontaneity sometimes felt careless on House-Sitter's set. Their differences surfaced quickly. Martin arrived early, script memorized, ready to execute with precision. Hahn often swept in late, exuding a casual confidence that matched her star status. She'd toss in unscripted lines or gestures to keep things fresh, which clashed with Martin's reliance on structure. He admired her talent, but found her unpredictability disruptive. The tension grew off-set in quieter ways. At a production party, Martin played his banjo, an instrument he revered as much as comedy itself. As he performed, Hahn made a playful jab at his expense. To her, it was light-hearted fun. To Martin, whose music was a sacred outlet, it stung deeply. Arguments erupted. Martin stayed professional, and Hahn remained her sparkling self, but the slights accumulated. By filming's end, Martin decided against future collaborations. When offers arose to reunite them, he passed. To outsiders, it seemed odd. Why avoid a proven box office pairing? But for Martin, harmony mattered, and with Hahn, he hadn't found it. He never spoke ill of her publicly, keeping criticisms private and understated. But his actions, declining further projects, said enough. House-Sitter remained their sole major collaboration, a testament to their talent, but also their incompatibility. Bill Murray comedy often hides simmering rivalries beneath its surface laughter. For Steve Martin, known for his polished professionalism, one of his sharpest conflicts came with Bill Murray, whose rebellious, unpredictable spirit defined him as much as his humor. The rift ignited during a late 1970s live sketch, when both were at their creative peaks. Martin, fresh from wildly successful stand-up and Saturday Night Live stints, was a model of discipline, original, hilarious, and meticulous. He believed in preparation and respect for the craft. Murray, equally brilliant, was his opposite, volatile, often late, and prone to pushing boundaries for the thrill of it. During the sketch, Murray arrived nearly an hour late, throwing Martin's carefully timed cues into chaos. Once on stage, he mocked Martin's clean-cut style, turning a collaborative moment into a one-man show. The audience laughed, but for Martin, it was a betrayal. Comedy relied on rhythm, and rhythm required trust. Murray had broken both. The fallout was quiet but profound. They didn't speak for over a decade, treating each other like strangers at industry events, even at places like Cannes. Martin valued punctuality and professionalism. Murray thrived on spontaneity, sometimes at others' expense. To Murray's fans, his chaos was genius. To Martin, it was disrespect masquerading as charm. Their clash reflected their opposing philosophies. Martin's structured sophistication versus Murray's anarchic energy. Both reshaped comedy, but together, they were incompatible. The silent rift spoke louder than any public feud, a fracture born not of a single moment, but of a violation of trust Martin couldn't forgive. Jim Carrey Award shows are meant to celebrate, uniting comedians to share laughs and honor their craft. But they can also expose tensions and clashing styles. One such moment came in the 1990s at a comedy awards show, when Steve Martin and Jim Carrey shared a stage, and the result was anything but smooth. Carrey, riding high from Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, was a whirlwind of manic energy, rubber-faced, wild-voiced, and relentless. Audiences loved his chaos, but to Martin, whose comedy was rooted in discipline and elegance, Carrie's style felt like a tempest. During Carrie's acceptance speech, what was meant to be a brief thank you stretched into a 14-minute spectacle. He cycled through impressions: Clint Eastwood, Jimmy Stewart, Elvis Presley, even fellow comedians in the room, mugging and shouting, pushing the bit past charm into indulgence. Martin, seated near the front, grew visibly restless. He valued brevity and rhythm, especially at tightly scheduled events. Carrie's unchecked improvisation grated on him. In a bold move, Martin stood, holding a comically oversized "wrap it up" sign. The crowd roared, thinking it was a planned gag, but behind Martin's smile was real frustration. He'd broken his own rule: never show irritation, because Carrie's disregard for structure pushed him too far. Later, Martin admitted respecting Carrie's talent, but found his style draining. "Working with Jim is like comedy anarchy," he said. To Martin, comedy needed balance. Carrie only knew excess. When a buddy comedy pairing was proposed, Martin declined, wary of enduring months of that relentless energy. Their clash was inevitable. Martin's polished wordplay and precise routines versus Carrie's raw, boundless spectacle. Both were brilliant, but together, they sparked friction, not harmony. Martin never insulted Carrie publicly, and Carrie didn't retaliate, but the distance remained. Hollywood tried to pair them again, but Martin's reluctance held firm. The awards show had left a lasting mark. What's your take on the 6 co-stars Steve Martin couldn't stand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We hope you found this video enlightening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Farewell.